father was a South African Special Forces veteran in the South African Border War, which was on behalf of the apartheid regime in South Africa. And he was part of a military unit that was notorious for, I think, over like 60% of the casualties of that part of the conflict, and had a nickname, the Murder Battalion. So my father was a killer, and I grew up in a household that was like rigidly patriarchal. Like from when I was really little, I would hear stories of violence, of death, and I internalized that as the way the real world is that I should expect violence. And my dad reinforced that in the ways that he tried to dominate my mom, my sister, and I, and also bully me into believing that these parts of my natural humanity that would, as a little boy that would never live up to this, the Special Forces unit in South Africa, that was inadequate and somehow less masculine. And so I grew up with this, this rigidly patriarchal environment, having to constantly numb myself and question what was wrong with me, not realizing that the standard I was being held to is not only an unrealistic standard in terms of patriarchy, but like an unrealistic standard in general. So I just grew up questioning and wildly insecure and feeling like there's something so wrong with me relative to other boys and other men. And I did have an adult man there with me for the first 17 years of my life telling me as much, that I couldn't hack it in a military environment. I shouldn't bother applying to college, and I also shouldn't bother enrolling in the U.S. Army because I wouldn't make it. And all of these different messages. So I learned to internalize them and believe that there was something wrong with me. And also, without ever being able to say, I am a survivor of domestic violence, there's physical and emotional abuse in my household. I never would have said that, but I gravitated in college towards an organization called Men Opposing Violence Everywhere, which facilitated conversations around sexual assault prevention for small groups on my campus at the University of Rochester. And that is where, in 2016, when I was 18 years old, we did a campus screening of the mask you live in April of 2016, and I was on the facilitation team. And so I started to talk to fraternities and sports teams and young men on my campus about toxic masculinity, which I don't use that phrase as much anymore, but also just cultural issues about like how does the way we conduct ourselves as men, as young men on this campus, contribute to rape culture, to violence. And again, never would have told a single soul about like, this is what's going on in my household, this is who my father is. End up getting an internship and gravitating towards like gender studies and wanting to really understand in international relations and economics, which I was studying. I was like, gender is not spoken about enough. And I don't even know what that means even. Like what, I need to learn more about this. And I got an internship at a domestic violence center when I was 21 years old. And that's how I rounded out my last year of college, is taking gender studies coursework in an academic setting, and then also interning at the Willow Domestic Violence Center in Rochester, New York, in Monroe County. And it wasn't until my first day of training at this domestic violence center where we had to learn about what constitutes domestic violence and family violence. What is the power and control wheel? What are the actual mechanisms that abusers use on a day-to-day basis versus what we think of in popular culture? And it was the first day of that training I had what I can only describe as an epiphany, come to Jesus moment, where I had to excuse myself and go to the bathroom and have a bit of a breakdown, recognizing like so many different aspects of this power and control wheel, being like, yep. Like that's my life. That's my experience. And so it is very recent in the past, 26 now. So I would say it's the past like 4.5 years of my life that I have finally been able to work on and acknowledge that I did gravitate naturally towards work that I needed because of my lived experience and my identity.